Just waiting to connect. Hi!
Hi.
Yay! I have
We
a
did it.
confession to make. This is literally the first time I've gone live on Instagram. Oh my goodness.
I'm so honored to go live with you for your first time.
Yay! Oh, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody's joined so far. Hello.
Wonderful. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Yay. So I think, shall we just dive straight in? I'll just say hello and then just do a quick little introduction for
Yeah.
anybody who watches the kind of the replay, I guess, right? And then we'll just dive straight in.
Yep. Sounds good.
Okay, fabulous. So for anybody who don't know me, I'm Ané. I'm founder and creator of Ané Skincare and Beauty here on this channel. And this is the first of a series of lockdown love conversations that we're going to have over the coming weeks, just to talk about various different things that we're all dealing with at the moment in our own ways. And we're going to talk about relationships. So that's where we're going to start tonight with Dr. Karin, and mental health and self-care and skincare and beauty and all these things. So it's a huge honor for me to welcome you tonight, Karin.
Thank you.
And it's we go back a little while in terms of our dating and relationship work in the past. So just to quickly summarize, Dr. Karin is an amazing psychologist. She's an author, she's a musician, and she hosts a very popular Love and Life podcast that you can check out over on her Instagram feed. And she does loads of IGTVs with loads of really helpful and useful relationship advice and dating stuff. So have I missed anything out?
No, you've been so kind. Thank you.
Well, thanks again so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
So tonight we're talking about relationships and in a couple sense, right? So whether in relationship, married, maybe long distance at the moment. Next week we're going to talk about being single and dating and so on, and then we're going to take it from there. So can I ask you to just start us off and just put a little bit of context around what's happening to all of us at the moment in our own different ways, but just some sort of framework. What are we actually going through in this lockdown period?
Yeah, I think that's such a great place to start because I think we feel a lot of emotions. Everyone's feeling a lot of things, and probably some of the emotions we normally feel are much heightened and more intense. And then we're probably feeling emotions that we don't typically feel. And that's making us go, "Look, what's wrong with me?" Well, what's wrong with us all, Ane, is we're really grieving. And I think we're aware of the fear. Is this virus going to get someone I love? Or the fear that life as we know it will never be the same. But underlying that fear is a grief of the loss of security, of loss of the sense of this is what I can know and expect from life. These are secure elements of my life that now the rug has been pulled out from under us. And so that's a grief. There's so much loss involved in this. And that's the element that I think is really the umbrella that is really covering and on top of all of this and underlying all of it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've not actually thought about it in those terms at all, that there is
Yeah.
some sort of underlying grief.
Yeah.
Because it is really traumatic, and whether we are in a position where we are healthy and we're just isolating and just keeping to ourselves, or whether we are in a position where we might be away from our families and
Right.
maybe somebody is ill, and to the extreme, people are losing loved ones and are going through the process of losing loved ones and livelihoods and businesses.
Yeah.
There's just overall there's so much loss on so many different levels, right?
Yeah. And I think we have to be very, and I know in American culture, and since we're like cousins, or we're like your babies, because of course our colony, the colonial period was essentially British. So I mean, and I'd be interested in what you think, but we don't do well with grief. I don't think in our culture. We don't really pay attention to it. We're really not in touch with our own experience for grieving. So this, I think, is an extra big challenge for those of us in, I would say in America for sure, and perhaps the UK. I'm sorry, my dog is trying to get me to throw a ball, so you hear me whining in the background. So I think that that's an extra challenge that we have to, we're not in touch with these emotions, and now they're really coming, the grief is really profound right now.
Mm-hmm. So how, just in the context of what we're going to talk about tonight in terms of relationships, how do you think that's being reflected in maybe some of the stresses and the strains that we are experiencing as couples all of a sudden, whether we are just by ourselves or all of a sudden we are at home together with children and having to deal with absolutely everything on top of these underlying feelings that we might not even be fully aware of. We know we're feeling things, but we're maybe not putting the words to it as such, and we know that when that happens it can come out in all sorts of different ways, right?
Exactly. I mean, I would encourage anyone to get a better sense of what grief entails, because again, we can be very detached from it. To go look at the Kubler-Ross, the stages of grief, and I don't think that they, and I think most psychologists and therapists recognize that they don't necessarily happen in sequence. So stages maybe isn't the best model for it, but really, if we look at the anger, the shock, the sadness, the depression, the denial. These are things that anyone in your household, including your intimate relationship, your partner, if you're with them, they're going to be feeling these at any given time. And so it's something to really recognize that no, your partner won't act the way that they normally act. It would be unrealistic really for any of us to be behaving normally at this time. And so we have to see and experience that and recognize where it's coming from. That doesn't give anyone a license to be a jerk. It doesn't give anyone license to be mean or cruel or insensitive. But I think it helps us all to recognize that that's really, like you said, what's going on underneath.
So where's starting point for all of us with that? To just recognize that. Where do we start in a couple?
With a couple?
Yeah.
Well, you mean now, like kind of now that we've understood that that's the case, what would be the next step?
Yeah. What's the next step?
I think aligned with that, the next step is grace. And as I mentioned, kind of just having a little grace and giving permission for each other not to be on our A game. And then that being said, let's also recognize that, okay, since my partner is feeling all these emotions, and certainly as you noted, we have job loss, we have people who are not sure how they're going to provide for their families. I mean, these are intense times. And so if we give each other a little grace, don't expect each other to be a happy A game at all times, I think that can be helpful for the relationship. I think that in and of itself,
Yeah. I guess even at the best of times is to manage our expectations, right? Even with everything is fine, everything is going well in life, without kind of this massive big thing that's going on, is that kind of expectation is to manage that, and maybe in some ways even lower it a little bit at the moment, because it can be such a silent killer, can't it? If you have that expectation that somebody should know how you feel, and if they know you and love you, they should know how to behave and what to do in any given situation. But that kind of, I guess that's just expanded a little bit, that we all need to give each other a little bit more space.
Yeah, and I love that you say that, because really expectations, this will probably be the first and only time I would tell anyone to lower their expectations, because you know how we both
feel of course.
Right. But I agree. In this case, we really, because I think the loving thing to do is to go, okay, this is stressful and intense for me. So I know it's stressful and intense for you. And so I don't want to add more to your plate, right? I want to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And it does take, and part of partnership, it's part of the reason we're in a partnership. It's not about, you're not on your own now. It's not about just thinking about yourself. You have to think about your partner. And I know that for my husband and me, I definitely want to be part of the solution. I want to be part of the thing that makes this experience for him easier, better, and that he can feel that he's navigating these uncharted waters a little bit less painfully because I'm around. And I know that sounds really Pollyanna, but I do think that it's part of the reason when you're in a relationship is to be that shoulder to lean on. Mm-hmm. And we don't want to make this whole very difficult situation worse by, like you said, having these unrealistic expectations during these times.
Yeah. So you just mentioned, just being with each other. For a lot of people,
yeah,
they are spending a huge amount of time together all of a sudden. Right. Like they've never been through something like this before. And for so many people, on top of that, there's a stress of children in the home, having yes. to keep the household going, having to keep jobs going, or maybe worried about losing business and livelihoods, as we said. So it's just so unprecedented, all the things that needs to be dealt with at the same time. How do we deal with, just within mentioning all of those, all of this is this almost like this pressure cooker situation? Have you got any thoughts and any tips and advice for dealing with that kind of scenario?
Yeah, I think that it can be utterly overwhelming, like you said, especially when you've got people who maybe they share space, but normally they zip out to do this and they have this obligation. So in the sense that they are sharing space, they still have a little bit of their me time. And now everyone's confined to perhaps a small space and they're on top of each other. And they enjoyed having the ability to head out over here and then come back and connect. And so now they're feeling there's so much of each other and they're so in each other's space. And so I think we have to still try to create that distance to give yourself a little personal time. And that's where the social media and the technology can really be helpful, because we can just maybe get away to a corner somewhere and open up our laptop and do a Zoom session with our girlfriends, for example, if we need that time with our friends. Because we really, in the midst of this, another element that could come into play is, like you talked about, because I don't have my chance to go out to see my girlfriends and get that girl time, I could then take that energy, that need for that connection with my girlfriends, and try to throw that on Dan and ask my husband to fill a void or fill a role that really he hasn't had to fill in the past. So that could be, the temptation would be to go, okay, I need this, so can you be my girlfriend right now? No, let technology do the good work of a Zoom session. Try to get that need met through a different way. And again, if you're on top of each other, I mean, again, I know some people are in close quarters and with the children. And I think another element I was thinking about today is about, you may need to redefine some of the workload, because maybe those roles maybe in the past that worked with your schedule prior to this, but maybe now we have to look at something different in terms of who's going to do what for divvying up the tasks, so that everyone feels that they're contributing the same amount. We don't want any resentment to build.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think part of that is also certainly here with Neil, and we don't have children in the house. It's just the two of us, because the boys are with their mom. So it's literally just the two of us 24/7. And I think every situation brings its own challenges. So I don't think there's like one that's better than the other one. But I can say we have considerably less to deal with in terms of obviously keeping a household, homeschooling, and children. So I can't even imagine how much extra that must put on any person in any relationship. But even for us, we are quite comfortable to say to each other, especially early in the morning, can you make me a coffee, please? But I'm not ready to have a conversation. I'm not ready to have a chat yet. So we'll go off and have a coffee and, I don't know, do whatever, and then come back and then have a chat. But, we're quite, there's no rejection in that. It's just, I love you, but I'm just not ready to talk just yet. I don't want to be right there. right now. I'll come back when I'm ready. You know, I think hopefully there is also a way of having that conversation to just say, I do need space, and it doesn't mean I love you, I don't love you, it doesn't mean rejection, but and I'm sure you need your space too. So let's just find a way of creating that for each other without feeling that that reflects in some way on our relationship.
I'm laughing because I kind of had that same thing this morning. I had like 3 emails come in at once, and they were all problems that something I'm trying to work on a project, and they were all problematic. So then Dan just says, "Hey, so how's your morning going?" And I was like, "Well, actually," and then I said to him, I said, "Wow, maybe how about you don't ask me how things are going, because clearly I didn't have anything but negative feedback for you." And then he's like, "Well, at least maybe not till noon," because he knows I'm not a morning person. And so he's like, "I think maybe I won't ask till later." And it's the kind of thing, Ane, where I sorted it out within 45 minutes. It was all fine.
Yeah.
But then I thought to myself, might I have been able to just take care of that and not have that blah, 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 blah. And of course he took it in stride. He just kept eating his cereal. Like, she's gonna be fine.
She's gonna be fine. Well, you know each other really well, don't you? So what, you know, I actually, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think this will, on top of everything else, I think that for a lot of couples this will actually be make or break time. I think just with the scariness of it all, you know, I certainly know, and I have some conversations that I've had, that there's some reflection on our own mortality, and what if life does end in, you know, something happens to me, and life does end in 6 months or a year, and so I don't, you know, it's not, I don't want to have it, it's not like a morbid conversation. All I mean is just, I think some people might reflect on, am I in the right relationship? Is this where I want to spend the rest of my life, really? And I've heard some, you know, news about in China, the divorce, I don't know, rate spiked with 30%, and like searches for divorce online has gone up for 150%, and it just makes me a bit nervous, on top of everything else, that, you know, what are we going to see when things do go back to normal and people have really recalibrated and reevaluated and decided what they want their lives to look like going forward?
Yeah. I mean, my first thought is, because I've seen some of those stats coming in too, my first thought is, were these marriages, were they already on the brink? Was this just the straw that broke the back? Or like you said, was this someone taking stock and going, okay, we're really in life and death type times. I'm looking at life differently now. I feel more tangibly how fragile it is. And I'm realizing I've been phoning it in with this relationship, and I don't want to do that anymore. And no one wants divorce, like, yay, divorce. But I also think if this is an opportunity for people to get clarity on who they are and who they want to partner through life with, maybe that's a good thing. I know there's a lot of pain and fallout from divorce, but I also would, if this is the thing that woke someone up from realizing, I don't know how many years left I have on this planet, and I definitely want to live authentically and have a deeply intimate relationship that's genuine, and maybe that's not what I've been living in, then I don't know. I don't think that's the worst thing.
I think there will probably be some of that.
I think
yeah,
so.
Definitely. So just in terms of managing, you know, some of these communications, shall we say, if somebody is listening to us and they do feel a bit stuck, with their situation and some of the stress and the strains. And it is really, because I mean, here in the UK we're kind of halfway through roughly a 3-week lockdown. I don't know if that's going to be extended. We're kind of just waiting to see if it will be. But so I kind of thinking, well, we're halfway through, and it's actually going quite fast, but at the same time it's going
Right.
quite slow. So have you got any thoughts and ideas just around communicating through
Yeah.
this?
So yes, my first communication tip is going to be currently with my husband and me. I'm going to communicate that I need him to get the dog. Hey, Dan, can you please get Copper? He's trying to get up in this Instagram live, and he's
Copper!
He's really sweet, but
Hey!
he's very distracting. I can't focus on what I'm trying to talk about because he wants me to toss balls. I keep stealing the balls, and thank you.
Oh, so, thanks, Dad.
Ané says hi.
You're welcome. Hi,
Thank you.
So, yeah, I think one of the things, again, as we were talking, this is an opportunity to understand and know your partner deeper, and an opportunity to know and understand how she appreciates and can receive communication. So that's important to me. And so I think, you know, I talked with Lise Wilcox, who you know as well, and she popped on my program talking about mindset strategies to help us navigate these waters. And she said one of the things I thought was great is the idea that she talked about masculine and feminine energy, and whether that's same-sex partners, it tends to be that you have a little bit more feminine energy in one and a little more masculine energy in the other, and that the masculine response typically is to retreat, right? And the feminine response is to like, let's talk it out. And so to be able to give each other the space to process in the way that makes sense for them and is helpful for them. And so if there's a tense moment, or if there's a problem that needs to be addressed, whether it be divvying up the chores, childcare, who's going to help with the homeschooling, or whether it be how are we going to handle this as a couple because we're getting irritated with each other in the mornings, or whatever the case may be, can you come to it and then say, hey, I'm feeling a need to talk this out. I also respect that you, in this moment, this may not be a good time for you. This may not be your need right now. Maybe you need to talk to retreat a little bit, go to your man cave, have a think, and then, but can I just ask you, at some point, will we be able to have this conversation? So instead of coming at someone, we need to talk right now, that's not so helpful. Most partners don't respond well to that. We want to look at, well, how can we communicate in a way that our message can actually be heard? Because so often we feel that rush of emotion, like, I got to say what I got to say. And then we sabotage the communication process inadvertently. We end up coming at someone, and then the defensiveness comes out. I mean, I would be defensive if someone came at me that same way. So it takes work, it takes energy. And that's just part of being in a relationship. And again, remembering that there's underlying grief, remembering that we're all not feeling ourselves. We've all have some sort of anxiety and fear and concern. So just keeping that in mind, I think, is a really important step to trying to keep the lines of communication open, and also try to look at it as an opportunity. Like I said, we can always look at this as an absolute utter crisis and devastating, or we can look at this, okay, where are the opportunities here?
Yeah. And what are some of the opportunities you find for yourself? How do you process this at the moment? What are you learning and taking out of it?
With Dan, with my relationship?
Yeah.
Yeah, with Dan? Yeah, one of the things I'm learning, and so we both work from home, so much like you and Neil work together a lot anyway, but then Dan travels every week, usually for a couple of days for business, which has been shut down, obviously. So one of the things that I'm learning is we can be in the same house all day and not really connect. And that's really been our experience. And I was realizing it as you and I were talking and trying to get some ideas for this live. And I realized just being in the same space does not mean we're connecting intimately whatsoever. And I'm not even talking about sex, because I mean, you can, I mean, I know men connect more intimately with sex, but I mean, we can just be around each other, have sex at night, and then the next day I still don't feel like we actually emotionally connected
Mm.
other than the physical, which is great. But there's that other piece. So one of the things I'm learning is that we need to be real intentional, especially in a time of crisis.
Mm.
We need to set out time where we say, put the phones down, put the laptops down, have dinner, and actually talk.
Yeah.
Not be at dinner, eating quickly and thinking about the 10 other things I'm going to do tonight.
Mm.
So that's been my learning point. How
Yeah.
about you?
I was just thinking when you said make time to actually talk, and it
Yeah.
reminded me of, you know, when you like when you get married, right? And you've got the wedding to plan, and
Yeah.
that's at some point leading up to that, that becomes all you talk about
Yeah.
as a couple, because it like, just feels like that's the whole, it's all you talk about. And I remember Neil and I, it's actually our 5-year anniversary on Friday, so it's just in my mind. But in the time leading up to the wedding, we actually made specific times where we would just like not talk about the wedding at all.
Yeah.
Just, you know, and I think it's so easy for, I see this with us as well. If, you know, we talk about putting boundaries around social media and news, which I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
do, but at the same
Yeah.
time, I was, have you seen this? Have you heard this? What's happening with this? Da, 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 da. And it's, so many of our conversations is now about what's happening
Right.
in the world, and I think it's really important. And I'm going to be much more conscious of that, that we, when we talk, that we actually make time to not talk about
Mm-hmm.
what's going on. Yeah, and but what's happening in the news and this whole thing, because it's just so easy to keep almost having the same conversations over and over
Mm-hmm.
about what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
I do think, and I've been reading some of the articles I'm sure people watching have as well, trying to keep any kind of sense of normalcy can be very comforting without even realizing it. So just keeping as much of your routine as possible to be in a similar state. So making your bed. I try to, I know some people, and absolutely no judgment, but I try to not like be in pajamas all day. I just think for me psychologically, I know that if I have that, I'm getting up to do what I do,
yeah,
it helps me feel more in control. We know as humans, and the psych research shows us that when we feel out of control, it's related to depression and anxiety. And yes, there are things that are very much out of our control, but what is in our control? I can try to maintain some sort of routine that approximates the life that I had before. And like you said, taking control of your social media consumption, also your news consumption, and then taking charge and control of your conversations. What are the topics you're going to take on and entertain? So I think
yeah.
that's really important.
It is, it's all important, but it's, you know, I mean, I know this is your mantra for life,
Yeah.
is take charge of your thoughts, take charge of your life, right? That's where
Mm-hmm.
it all starts, because it's very easy to have these conversations. And I think we all know to an extent what we need to do. But it's just so, I think when we feel overwhelmed and there's so many unknowns and uncertainty, it's easy to kind of just slip into almost not doing what we know is good for us. I know, you know, I know when I choose not to do a workout and instead have an extra bowl of cereal or something, you know, whatever the case may be, it's just, it's just comforting sometimes to slip into
Mm-hmm.
to the things that might not be so helpful for us, because it's just what we know. And sometimes the thing that's a little bit harder is actually the thing that's good for us, but it's a lot more conscious choice that's involved in that.
Yeah, it's that discipline feels like something you don't want, but there's so much freedom in discipline, and there's so much health in discipline. And again, I'm quick to be like, okay, I don't have time for that workout. So I'm not trying to position myself as someone who has all the answers for this. But in general, discipline is also related to your thought processes. There's discipline in
Mm.
that as well. And again, when we have that discipline, it exercises that control, which helps us feel better. Because when we feel out of control, like I was saying, that's where we really can start to become utterly overwhelmed. So we want to take control of what we can, even if it is, I'm going to make my bed every morning. I'm going to put on some clothes and try to have a semblance of a life that I used to have. And so that's important, to just try to take that discipline and not see it as, oh, I have to be disciplined, but see it as, ooh, this is my opportunity to exert control over a situation that doesn't feel very much, it feels very much out of my control right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we've also got some ideas and some really practical fun things to do, some tried and tested tools that
Mm-hmm.
we thought that we could share. So I think these are things that you can do whether you're in a short-term relationship, long-term relationship, marriage, maybe just dating, or even if you're single. I think these are still things to just be aware of. So shall we talk through some of those?
Yes.
It's just some really practical tools and things and they're all free, they're all available online, but just, I think, some really helpful stuff that I know we've both used with, in our work and with clients and so on.
Yeah.
And for certainly in my own relationship as well. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
so I'll start us off with
Yeah.
my favorite, if that's okay.
Yeah.
So, if anybody who's listening know about the 5 love languages, give me a little heart or a little comment down below. But that's certainly one of my favorite tools. So I'll just talk through it very quickly. You've talked about it as well on your podcasts and stuff, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this is a really great tool for couples, and it's available for if you're single as well. I actually have the book here with me. It's called The 5 Love Languages, and this is the singles edition. And what I really love about it is that it's also available for children and for teenagers. So you can do it as a couple, but you can also do it for your family.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just Google 5 love languages, I think it's 5lovelanguages.com with the number 5, you will come across a questionnaire. And this whole concept was developed by somebody called Gary Chapman, who after 30 years of counseling thousands and thousands of couples came up with the premise is that we all understand love that's expressed to us in a certain way. So we all feel loved and understood in a certain way. And then we also express love in a certain way. And then through all his work, he narrowed down these ways of expressing and experiencing love to the 5 love languages. So that's where the concept comes from. And it's so the 5 love languages are, remind me if I skip one, is words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch, acts of service, and gifts. And his theory is that we all have all these 5 love languages, but that we have one or two that are particularly dominant when we're in a relationship. So, and that there can be a mismatch between the way that I express my love for you and the way that you understand love, the way that you feel loved. So I'm just going to use a practical example to try and explain it. So one thing that happened between Neil and I is that one of my 2 top love languages is quality time and words of affirmation. And his top love language, number 1, 2, and 3, is acts of service. That's his thing. He always wants to do things for me. He's just always doing things for me, and it just makes him happy. And that's amazing. So, but what happened for a long time was that I just wanted to have his undivided attention. I just wanted him to just sit with me and talk to me and not be distracted and not be doing things, because that's how I felt loved and understood. And of course I did the same for him. I just wanted to just be with him and just sit with him and talk and just have quality time. In the meantime, he wanted to be off and just do things for me and go about. And I just it might not sound like a big thing, but there was a real mismatch between us in big and small ways until we kind of figured out that, you know, what he's actually just trying to do is just, that's his way of showing his love for me. And my acts of service is actually number 5 for me, and for him it's like number 1, 2, 3. But it's number 1 for me when he empties the dishwasher. So that's the one thing that makes me the happiest in the world. So actually figuring out your own and your partner's love languages is, it sounds so simple, but it can make a profound difference in your relationship, because it gives you a framework to communicate what it is that's important to you, and to ask for what you want. Because if you don't have the words, and you just have these feelings inside, and you don't know how to express it and ask for what it is that you need, then it can cause a lot of mismatched expectation again, and that can cause a lot of conflict. So for something that's a free tool, so you can just go online, get to the quiz. I think there are 30 questions. It's just a fun thing to do. It takes no time at all, but it can actually make a huge big difference. And then there are various books to buy around the subject as well, but in terms of just as an immediate resource, it's just free, it's available, and it's there. And like I said, there's a singles edition as well, and I always used to do this with my clients to while they were still single and dating, to figure this out for themselves before they got into a new relationship.
I don't think it's a little thing at all. In fact, one of my best friends, they had been married for maybe 10, 15 years, and then they went through a very, very difficult time, and they were separated for almost a year. And then as they got to the point to try to reconcile and got into counseling, this is one of the tools that they used, and they really credit it as saving their marriage. It sounds simple, too simple to be as profound, but I think we all know down deep that oftentimes the most profound things in life are pretty simple at their core.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great idea. And it, like you said, it gives you a framework and an opportunity just to understand why maybe when you did a gesture, because that was your love language, and so that's the way that you assume. We just assume by default that everyone else wants love the way we want love.
Yeah.
And so when you made that gesture and it wasn't received in the way that you had hoped it would be received, now you understand, oh, well, because I was giving quality time, and what they really want is acts of service. So now have you had to step up your act of service game to love the way you want?
I had to big times, you know, but I'm not... I love doing things for him. I mean, I put out his clothes every single morning. It takes me 30 seconds to do that, and it makes him so happy. But you know, for him, for me, it's the smallest little thing, and for him it just means the world. It's because the day that I skip it, he's a bit like what happened? So, you know, I mean, when you read the books, the love languages books for couples and for singles, when you read the case studies, because Gary Chapman just shares all these many case studies, the changes that it make in relationships is just absolutely incredible. It's actually, it's a beautiful thing. And I think for people who now have maybe a little bit more time, I mean, we just talked about not having time because you are on top of each other, you've got so much to do, but there's always a way to create more time if you want to. There's always a way. I mean, the one thing that I always do, this moment I say I don't have time for things, I just have to think, have I spent half an hour wasting my time on Instagram today? Have I done that? And if I did, then obviously I do have time.
But that's not a waste of time, Ané. That's for you're building your community and letting people know about your lovely products.
I no, see that I don't count it as that. It's the bit I waste my time with is comparing myself with 23-year-old fitness models. That's what I do.
Why are you following those accounts?
No, I don't mean I waste my time. I mean I torture myself on Instagram. That's what I do.
which is a waste of time.
Yeah, that's a waste of, exactly. Now, I'm not talking about work. Like, I mean, for me, it's not even work. I love being, I'm forever in my DMs on Instagram. I love it. It's one of the best things about my life, really, is my customers and my DMs, of which I see quite a few have joined us previously here. So yeah, so 5 love languages is a really, really great tool, and I think it's also something you can revisit over time. It's not to say if you've done it once in your life, don't do it you know, again. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I love that as again, trying to use this time, again, whether it's, we can frame it as a crisis, which it is, but also look at the opportunity to get to know your partner at a deeper level. I mean, that would be, you know, I've been thinking about whenever we crawl out from under this lockdown situation we're in, what is it going to, what will we look back and you know, there's a lot of pressure right now. Half of the folks in social media are saying, well, this is a great opportunity, learn a new language. And, you know, then it's like, oh my gosh, not only am I on lockdown and I'm grieving and I'm scared and I have anxiety, and now also you want me to like come out of this fluent in another language. So there's that message. And then that's coupled with the other folks who are like, hey, don't listen to that. You can just do you, relax, kick up your feet and watch Netflix. But I know personally, if I binge watched like 25 Netflix series and then crawled out from under this at the end, and that's all I had to say for it or to show for it, that wouldn't be satisfying for me personally.
Yeah.
But what would be satisfying is, like you were saying, is trying to carve out opportunities to take a fun little quiz and to see if I can deepen my relationship in some way, understand Dan in a deeper way. And yeah, I think that would be very valuable.
Yeah.
And so I love that idea.
I think I think there's a real potential, even, you know, I see that with myself. I mean, you know, I'm still just working every day as before, because, you know, it's just I'm very lucky to be able to just keep working on my business. So on a day-to-day, that hasn't changed as much. But I think there is a real potential to come out of this, because this time is going to go very fast. It doesn't feel like it at the moment, but when it's over and we look back, it's going to be one of those things where it's just, it's flown by, right? And I just feel like when I look at the hundreds and thousands of millions of people out there, medical staff and key workers and everybody else who might so want to be with their families and want to be with their partners, and so wish they could have just some of this time to spend and invest in their relationships and using it a bit more purposefully, then I just feel like I don't feel it. It's not like an obligation, but I just feel like I just want to make the most of it, because it feels weird to say that it feels like a gift, but it's not a gift, but it just feels like I don't want to waste it in some way. But at the same time, I don't think there should be any pressure on anybody to start a business and write a book and have a bikini body in 3 weeks, and, you know. No, no thanks. Yeah, so it's just weighing up, but I think it's also important to find meaning in things and give it purpose, and not just to let it slip by. Yeah,
I agree. I feel like it's, again, just trying to take control of the elements we can control.
Yeah. So we've got another tool to share.
Yes, bring it.
Okay, this is another one. So we've just talked about the 5 love languages. This one is really great, I think, for couples who are getting to know each other. But even if you're together, like we've been together 10 years, and I can see us doing this. You know, we've tried before and we didn't get very far with it, but we might try again. This is something called 36 questions. And I'm not 100% sure where this comes from, but if you go and Google 36 questions in love, you will find the website. I think it's 36questionsinlove.com with the number 36. 36questionsinlove.com. And the premise is, it's really good questions, actually. So I think it's fantastic if you're dating somebody and getting to know somebody new. So you go through these 36 questions, and as you go on, they get more and more in depth. And then at the end of it, you spend 4 minutes looking into each other's eyes without saying a word.
Wow.
So yeah, when you go and read the stories for some of this, and the premise behind it is, if you do this, then they believe, whoever came up with this, that you can't help but falling in love with the person that you did this with, whether you've just met them almost, or whether you've been with them for a while. It's like a whole new kind of like a rediscovery. So I thought, you know, just as a practical thing to do, maybe you spread it out over a couple of nights, or you just open a couple of bottles of wine and you just spend an evening and just go through these questions. I thought that's a really lovely thing to do, and, you know, just a way of getting closer together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have heard of that. I can't remember if I saw a study on that where they were trying it with people who didn't know each other.
Yeah, it could
Yeah.
be. It could be. Absolutely. Yeah. So I don't know. Um I feel a bit, the 4 minutes looking into each other's eyes makes me a little bit nervous. Who knows what happens? Anyways, so yeah, that's just another tool. I thought that could be a fun thing to do and maybe useful.
Yeah.
And then there's one more. One more.
Okay.
Okay. The third one is the 6-second kiss.
Ooh.
And this was actually the theory. Oh, I just saw a question about how it would work over FaceTime, doing these
Yeah.
36 questions. I think it would work great.
Yeah.
The reason why I'm saying that is, I think for a lot of long-term relationships that take these long distance relationships that can take this time to just really talk. I mean, can you imagine the reunion after all of this? So I think,
Mm.
yeah, I think absence can make the heart grow fonder, even if you see each other, but you're not physically together. So I would definitely say give it a try, especially long distance.
Yeah.
I think it's such a great way to connect.
No, I'm so glad to. Yeah, like I said, I think I've come across a study, or maybe you and I talked about it, you know, when we were doing modern dating mindset, and we briefly chatted about it, but I haven't really explored it, and now I'm going to do that. I don't know. So it will take a couple hours though to get through all 36, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So we'll
I would
start
say
it.
so. I would say,
Yeah.
yeah, a couple of hours. And then, because the thing is, you don't know what those questions might lead to. You know, it might lead into all sorts of other conversations, and then you come back. And lovely thing is, I think part of the thing is that you need to alternate between who asks the question. So it's not like an interview, like one
Yeah.
person asking the question. So it's alternating between the two. Um, and if you're unsure if your other half will be up for it, maybe just send them the link and invite them on a date. It could be one way,
Yeah.
to maybe just have it as a date, as opposed to, maybe not like we need to work on our relationship kind of
Right. Right.
framework. It's
I
not
like
like,
that.
it's more like
Yeah.
just like a date kind of fun thing to
Yeah.
do,
Something to do. Yeah.
instead of watching
Uh-huh.
another Netflix movie or something,
Right.
just, yeah.
Yeah, and I like that. We were talking about communication earlier. So the idea would be, it's not like you said, we need to talk things out. It's just, this is a vehicle to talk things out, but it's a very low threatening, and
Totally. I mean,
yeah.
it's just fun. And the questions are,
Yeah.
like I say, they start quite, like a bit lighter, and they get a bit more deeper as you go on.
Mhm.
But you can spread it out over the week, or you can just do one a day, or you can do
Yeah.
two, whatever the case may be, just keep it light.
Mhm.
Or even if you don't feel comfortable doing it with somebody just yet, just use the questions yourself. I mean,
Mhm.
you know, just use them and to find
Yeah.
out more about somebody, because they
Yeah.
are very, very useful for sparking conversation. Definitely. There's
Love it.
actually some I thought I would ask Neil, because I thought there's
Yeah.
some like, oh, I'm not sure what he would say about this. And I think that's really great, because I think when you start assuming you know everything about your partner, even though you've been together for a very long time,
Mhm.
I think that's a bit dangerous,
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
just think you can predict and know every single
Mhm.
thing about somebody. I love that, you know, he still surprises me massively after 10 years. I mean, I can
Mhm.
predict his jokes. I can predict I can predict what he's going to say in certain situations. I can really accurately predict a lot of things, but he still massively surprises me with things that he's interested in, or that he wants to pursue, or that he, you know, all of a sudden wants to do
Yeah.
in a year or two, or like, you know, he still really surprises me, and I like that. I don't. It's not like, well, I know you inside out.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important.
Yeah. I love that. So you've got one more for
I've
us.
got one more before we finish. Yes. Oh, we're almost on an hour.
They
Oh,
kick us
shoot.
off
Oh,
at
gosh, we're going to get cut off.
they
Okay,
do.
so here's the 6-second kiss. And this was kind of, how can I say, coined or whatever by John Gottman from the Gottman Institute.
Mhm.
And we know that the Gottman Institute is very, very famous for all their work around relationships and so on.
Yeah.
So the 6-second kiss, the premise is that especially the longer we are together, um, as with many, many other things in a long-term relationship or marriage, it kind of begins to slide a bit. So we don't kiss as much as we do,
Mhm.
like we do in the beginning. You know, sex
So true.
aside, this is not necessarily
Yeah.
about sex. This is just like about kissing and being close to each other. So his theory is that instead of just doing a quick peck, good
Mhm.
morning and good night, whatever, it's just kiss for 6 seconds, and that it's just long enough to be romantic, but not
Mhm.
too long to make the kids late for school. Something along those lines. So it's just a little bit of closeness. And I don't know if this is 100% true, but apparently at around 6 seconds, you start releasing oxytocin, which we know is feel good hormone and the bonding hormone and so on.
Mhm.
So I think there's nothing to lose. And we do that a lot of the time, is where we would, instead of just saying a quick goodbye, you off you go into town or London for the day or whatever, we would have a 6-second kiss. And you know, I've told Neil about this, and he would actually like, come on, 6 seconds. And you know, it doesn't have to lead to anything else. Maybe it does, which is great, but it doesn't have to. It's just another very, very small way to just have a little bit of closeness and intimacy, and just a small way of just bringing that physical closeness back,
Yeah.
especially if you feel that you've started to lose that, and it's maybe, you know, tricky to kind of talk about it and have that conversation. So yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
I
it's
love
kind of
these
lovely. I think
tools and
so. I
yeah.
think so. I love kissing anyway, so you know.
Yeah. And it does. It's weird. You wouldn't think it would, but it does start to be, you know, because when you're first dating, it's all about like leading up to the excitement of the physical connection. And so yeah, you have a lot of that. And then you can get into that routine. And so yeah, let's snap out of that routine. I love that. That's such great
Yeah,
techniques and tools.
yeah. So I just want to say thank you so much for Harry Kakai, who's just put the links down in the comments with
Yes.
the 36 questions in love.com and 5lovelanguages.com. Thank you so very much for doing that. I'm so sorry if I pronounced your name incorrectly, but thank you so very much for doing that. So yeah, that was our conversation, and we just wanted to cover some, you know, just some acknowledge some of the stresses and strains that's going on, and also share with you some quick, fun, practical things that you can try, hopefully to maybe just get a bit closer, some ideas for date night, and think about ways to hopefully come out of this stronger and together. Yeah.
I love it.
Any parting words from you, Karin?
Oh, I just want to thank you for the invitation to join you for Lockdown Love. I really appreciate, I love collaborating with you always. And I know we have more collaborations in our future whenever the next phase of everyone's life emerges from this. And
definitely.
Thanks to everyone who joined us. And it's a pleasure and it's an honor to use this social media to connect with you and to feel less alienated and isolated and to have a little bit of normalcy as we've been speaking to. So thanks, Ané. My final tip is really you spoke to it earlier, one of my life's mantras is take charge of your thoughts, take charge of your life. And as we spoke to again, but it bears repeating always, we can't control what's happening in the world around us, maybe even in the home around us, but we can control our response and how we process it and how we view it. And again, I love this because it's just so pertinent and relevant right now. This is a crisis and it is also an opportunity. So which one will you focus on?
Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you so much for everybody who's joined us. Thank you for being here, because I am now no longer an Instagram Live virgin. I wouldn't have wanted to do it with anybody else, Karin. Thank you so much. I love you and I miss you. And thank you everybody for watching. We are going to do this again next Wednesday, and we're going to have a special episode for singles and people who are very much on their own, but also around dating at the moment and so on. And then also on my channel, I'll keep you up to date with some more conversations I'm going to have with some more amazing people around self-care and mental health and other topics and so on. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day if you're in the States, everywhere else in the world. Sweet dreams if you're here in the UK. Lots of love, and speak again soon.
Bye. I love you.
Bye-bye.